everybody? Welcome back to another college basketball little video. I'm gonna try to fly through this one as quick as possible, as always. Um, if you hear anything in the background, I have the Lions and Eagles game on. My fantasy team is doing great. Finally, we were like 2-7 last week, 2-6. We won last week. We're about to win again this week, and we're like one spot out of playoffs. So hopefully that goes according to plan and we make playoffs. So that being said, uh, shut up and start doing this. So week 2 college basketball. We'll just get right into it. On Monday the 10th, NAIA Reinhardt loses to Jack State 114-39 blowout. NCCAA. I'll mention though that. Reference a little bit. That is the National Christian, basically the Christian of NCAA, essentially. D1, Escalesa, I think. Maybe I probably butchered that. Anyway, loses to Southern 115-51. UConn beats Columbia 89-62. D2, Penn State, Shinago loses to Youngstown State 115-53. Maine drops to 0-3 after 72-60 loss for Rutgers. D2 North Greenville beats D1 Gardner Webb 92-81. How about that? Crazy. Presbyterian last second jumper takes down Georgia State 63-61. NCCAA VA Lynchburg, I think D2, loses to Tennessee Tech 118-58. Kent State knocks off UNC Wilmington 88-77. From, as most of you probably remember, UNC Wilmington was in the March Madness a year or two ago. Charleston Southern junior guard scores 42 points and win versus the Citadel 96-86. I try to keep it more than 40 points. I could do 30-point games, but 40 plus is a little bit better. NCCAA D2 Biblical Studies Ambassadors gets blown out by McNeese 132-50. Iowa State beats Mississippi State 96-80. NCCAA Arlington Baptist loses to UT Arlington 117-61. St. Louis dominates Lindenwood 109-66. Both D1 schools, by the way. Northwestern scores big versus Cleveland State 110-63. Santa Clara West Coast Conference knocks off Xavier 87-68 by a decent amount of score right there. NAIA Lincoln University out of California loses to UC Irvine 130-63. UCLA beats West Georgia 83-62, and Washington State gets first win of the season versus St. Thomas, Minnesota 81-71. Whew. A lot of talking. All right. Tuesday, November 11th, Wisconsin dominates Ball State 86-55. NAIA IU Columbus loses to IU Indy 121-77. UMBC with a buzzer beater 3 beats Morgan State in overtime 81-79. And keep out for that because the same kid did the same thing today. We'll get to that later. Michigan survives Wake Forest in overtime 85-84. D3, I'm assuming Southern New York, Delhi, maybe, loses to U Albany 115-52. I do know they're a New York team, school, I should say. Duke blows out Army 114-59. Florida sneaks by Florida State 78-76. NCCAA D2 Pensacola Christian loses to Troy 121-56. North Alabama survives Northwestern State 87-83. Do not get Northwestern and Northwestern mixed up. I know they sound the same. Northwestern is not very good usually. Fordham last second shot beats Wagner 63-61. NJIT with a buzzer beater beats Loyola Maryland 66-64. Central Connecticut had a last-second layup. Caps 11-point deficit to upset Boston College 60-59. Poor Boston College. I mean, football's not doing well, and then now they lose in basketball. Louisville early statement win versus Kentucky 96-88. NAIA Mayville State loses to North Dakota 128-58. USCAA That is the United States College Athletics Association. Oakwood loses to Tennessee State 114-76. Buffalo drops off DePaul. Why did I say drops off? They knocked off DePaul, I should say, 66-53. Despite losing by 13 at halftime, Arkansas drops 53 second half points in their win, 86-85. Nebraska beats Maryland, or MD Eastern, I believe that's Maryland, 69-50. Duquesne takes down Queens 87-81 in overtime. The Illini beats Texas Tech 81-77 in a great game. NCCAA D1 Bethesda blown out by Southern Utah 118-60. NAIA Lincoln University at California, they're back, loses to Pepperdine 113-76. Former top recruit, I don't know how many of you remember him, Mikey Williams, drops 30 points and loss. 90-87 was the final, and Gonzaga with dominating win versus Creighton, 90-63. Gonzaga was the 14th ranked team, and Creighton was 23. I was watching that game, and Creighton just looked lost. They looked like they didn't want to play there. They just looked like they had better things to do, honestly. All right, this should be Wednesday. Tennessee easy win versus North Florida, 99-66. NAIA Point University loses to Kennesaw State 111-60. NCCAA D1 Bob Jones loses to South Carolina Upstate 114-53. Indiana blows out Milwaukee 101-70. It's not really a blowout, but you know what I mean. George Washington easy win versus American 107-63. George Washington's off to like a 4-0 start, I think. Houston beats Oakland 78-45. Now, I said look out for Oakland. They had a great game versus a not powerhouse school. D3 Scholastic gets blown out versus North Dakota State 111-38. Ouch. Tulsa free throws with 1 second left to beat Oral Roberts 88. Why did I put 88-78? Probably 88. Wait, well, I don't know. Disregard that. I don't know what I'm doing. North Carolina State, or NC State, I should say, scores big versus UNC Greensboro 110-64. Samford survives Texas Southern 93-90. North Texas loses 66-64 after calling a timeout with none left, leading to technical free throws, because you can't call a timeout if you don't have one. Otherwise, it costs you 2 technical free throws and yada yada. Nevada takes down Southern Illinois 86-81 in overtime. Almost a 10-minute mark. We're about halfway through. College basketball on the 13th would have been, Thursday? Not a whole lot going on. Michigan State beats San Jose State 79-60. Not the best outing, but pretty good for San Jose State, honestly. Purdue, big win versus Alabama, 87-80. North Carolina A&T survives NAIA Washington Adventist, 89-83. ECU, East Carolina, survives D2 Elizabeth City, 71-70. Oh, boy. LSU makes 30 free throws. Yes, 30 free throws en route to win versus FIU 98-81. And D3 Benedictine out of Illinois loses to NIU Northern Illinois 117-62. Friday, correct? Yeah, Friday. Rodney Rice had a triple-double and win versus Illinois State 87-86. Oh my goodness. I was so frustrated watching my Illinois State Redbirds lose to USC. I'll get to that in a minute. Duke blows out Indiana State 100-62. Kentucky blows out Eastern Illinois 99-53. D3 VA Lynchburg loses to Alabama State 124-68. West Georgia outscores the Citadel 100-92 in a high-scoring game. Fairfield beats Stonehill in overtime 73-71. SIUE takes down Drake 61-59 with last-second jumper. That's a big upset. I would imagine. UAB knocks off High Point 91-74. New Orleans upsets Tulane 85-63. New Orleans has like 2 wins this year, and the first one was versus TCU, and now they beat Tulane. I believe it was versus TCU. That's just crazy. Arkansas survives Samford 79-74. Now you watch New Orleans, it won't even win their conference now. UCF takes down Texas A&M 86-74. Michigan wins versus TCU 67-63 in a very close game. Georgia gets win versus Georgia Tech 92-87. Colorado takes down Providence 97-88. Utah Tech wins versus Mississippi Valley State in double overtime 81-87. Mississippi Valley State's usually not very good. They're usually like a 1-2 win team. So Utah Tech needs to get some stuff together. Arizona tops UCLA 69-65 in Hall of Fame series. Gonzaga beats Arizona State 77-65, and Washington beats Washington State 81-69. But no, my Illinois State Redbirds, obviously they're not going to go beat USC. That's kind of a given. They had so many open threes and open shots that they just couldn't hit. At one point, they were only down 6. They were there, and then they hit like a 5-7 minute drought of not making any shots, and I'm like, we're not gonna win if we're doing that, so I mean, we barely beat 0-3, now 0-4 Long Beach State tonight. So Saturday, also known as a yesterday, Coppin State drops to 0-6 after 72-62 loss for South Alabama. Coppin State might not be very good again this year. I think they only had like a couple wins last year. Louisville beats Ohio 106-81. Georgetown takes down Clemson 79-74. Jacksonville hits last-second 3 to beat VMI, Virginia Military Institute, 69-67. Kent State defeats Cleveland State 102-95. Battle of the Ohio Schools. Kansas beats Princeton 76-57. Winthrop dominating versus Mercer 105-69. NAIA loses to North Florida 122-67. The school that lost was New College. I completely forgot to do it when I was doing it, so I had to go back and do that. NCCAA D2 Boyce loses to Purdue Fort Worth 118-68. Maryland beats Marquette. How about that? 89-82. I was telling somebody that the Big East, most of those schools are FCS schools that don't even have football. And then when it comes to basketball, they just kick everybody's butts usually. UIC sneaks past winless Chicago State 67-63. Chicago State's like Mississippi Valley State. They're really not very good. SMU had last-second layup, beats Butler 87-85. Arkansas Pine Bluff drops 0-5. Start after 104-75 loss to Vandy. D3 Defiance loses to Oakland 113-47. So that's why I said Oakland pretty darn good in that game. Mississippi State holds off Southeast Louisiana 75-68. USCAA D2 Central Penn loses to American 115-50. Boise State sneaks past Montana State 62-58. St. John's dominates William & Mary 93-60. UConn takes down BYU 86-84 in a great game. Nebraska outscores Oklahoma 105-99. NCCAA D2 champion Christian loses to Southern University 129-64 in a blowout. Minnesota survives Green Bay 72-65 in overtime, and North Colorado beats Pepperdine 88-81 in overtime. Now, today I'm filming this Sunday evening, or should say night at 11:18 currently. This will come out probably 8 in the morning on Monday. Illinois State hangs on versus Long Beach State 82-80. They missed a free throw intentionally, got it back, had the chance to tie it up, instead into overtime and missed it. UMBC DJ Armstrong hits his second buzzer beater of the week to win in overtime 71-70 versus Wagner. Told you to look out for him, because I was going to mention him again. Kent State beats Wright State in overtime 76-72. NAIA Kentucky Christian loses to Morehead State 121-51. Ohio State beats Notre Dame with last-second layup 64-63. Sanford beats Central Arkansas in overtime 84-77. Maine Black Bears fall to 0-4 after 70-64 loss versus Quinnipiac. Number 1, Houston tops number 22, Auburn, 73-72 in a very close game. I don't know how many of you watched that, but that was a great game. Last second free throw leads Harvard to win versus Marist, 56-54. Indiana survives Incarnate Word, 69-61, and Florida beats Miami, 82-68. All right, only 2 more papers left. Your teams, for those of you who are watching and said you were a fan of a team and wanted me to talk about them, here we go. I decided not to do the stats. It'd probably just be easier to just do a quick run through. So we'll start out with Creighton. Dominated a whole game by Gonzaga. Sorry about this. Final was 90-63. They shot 37% from the field, 28% from 3-point, 17 turnovers. Has to clean that up. You can give about 10 to 15 usually for a good team and be fine. But once you start pushing past 15, you're really pushing it. But had a bounce back win versus Maryland Eastern, 84-45, where they shot 49% from the field, 30% from the 3, and only 9 turnovers to really clean that up. Only have one upcoming game this week, and it's North Dakota on the 19th. Nebraska had a couple wins this week, 69-50 versus Maryland Eastern. They were back. Shot 39% from the field, just 19% from 3, and only 7 turnovers. But offense came through when they needed them to. Sanford and Hoiberg combined for 37 points. And Nebraska hit 15 three-pointers en route to win versus Oklahoma, 105-99. They shot 58% from the field, 56% from three-pointers, and just 5 turnovers. That's efficiency right there, ladies and gentlemen. Shooting almost 60% from the field is, decent. But from the 3, that's pretty good. And then, just 5 turnovers. Upcoming game on the 20th is New Mexico. Washington gets a win versus in-state, Washington State, 81-69. They shot 42% from the field, 35% from the 3, only 7 turnovers, and they had 4 players in double digits. Their next upcoming game, only one for the week, is on the 18th versus Southern. I think Maine is the only one who has 2 games this week. Upcoming week, Gonzaga had 2 great wins. One was dominant versus Creighton. I already spoke on that. Winning 90-63 as a statement win. Then they beat Arizona State 77-65, shooting 43% from the field, 29% from 3, 14 turnovers. Like I said, 10 to 15s, you're pushing it, but you'll probably be fine. With 4 players in double digits and very promising start, Gonzaga is 4-0. Their next coming game is Southern Utah on the 17th, which I believe is Monday. Maine, oh poor Maine, lost to Rutgers 72-60. They shot 48% from the field, which isn't terrible. 45% from 3, not terrible, but 18 turnovers. Really has to clean that up, and 23 rebounds. That's it. And they only lost by 12 to Rutgers. So if you think about it, you go on the road to play Rutgers, right? You only lose by 12. You clean up your turnovers. You get maybe about 30 to 35 rebounds. It'll probably be a 5-point game or less. Really could clean that up a little bit more. And then tough 6-point loss at home versus Quinnipiac, 70-64, despite leading at halftime, 36-28. They only shot 39% from the field, 29% from 3, just 11 turnovers, and 32 rebounds. So like I said, clean it up a little bit, and it's really not bad. Just offense needs to, pick up their game a little bit. They have 2 upcoming games on the 19th versus Merrimack and on the 23rd versus Brown. But Brown has not won a game either, so, who knows. We have 1 paper left as I knock a card over, so we should be able to get this video. I'm knocking all the cards over. Should be able to get this video done in under 20 minutes, hopefully. Week 3 headlines. This is women's basketball. I'm just going to speak on this real quick. D3 Scranton beats Pittsburgh 69-63 in a exhibition scrimmage. So granted, whatever, but still, that D3 school is going to go home riding high for sure. Top games Monday: Oregon State at Oregon. Tuesday you got Michigan State at Kentucky and Kansas at Duke. Wednesday, you have Arizona at UConn and Alabama at Illinois. Thursday, you have New Mexico at Nebraska, Pitt at UCF, Wake Forest at Texas Tech, and Mississippi State at Kansas State. Friday, you got a whole host of them. Wisconsin at BYU, South Carolina at Butler, Virginia at Northwestern, Louisville at Cincinnati, and West Virginia at Clemson. All great games, probably all on the main broadcast, ESPN, Big Ten Network, SEC, all that. Saturday, Providence at Penn State. And then Sunday, Virginia at Butler and South Carolina at Northwestern. Some of the big tournaments and all that going on is the State Farm Championship Classic, the Sunshine Classic, the Paradise Jam, the Shriners Children's Charleston Classic, and the Cancun Challenge, not for the NFL or MLB, and the Empire Classic. So that's it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Hopefully your team's doing well. If it's not, you're only 2 weeks in. You got plenty of the season to go. So, till next time, guys. See ya.